This evening, the councilors and the county manager and I are very excited to share with you the accomplishments of the last year and some of our priorities for the year to come. One of the positive things that we've done this past year, since our county manager, Shawn Henessee, joined us, is that we've changed our biennial budget to an annual budget process. And we believe that this will help us to plan better, and it may also provide an opportunity for efficiencies. We also want to be careful and efficient with taxpayer dollars and serve the public in the best way possible. I believe Shawn will go on and tell you a little bit more about the budget in his presentation, but I'm encouraged by the progress that we've made in our attempt to give our citizens the highest service with the taxpayer money that they provide to us. But speaking of service to our citizens, one of the areas that we've made great strides forward is in our community development department. Here are a few of the highlights that the director, Mitch Nichols, and his hardworking team have accomplished. Now, there are several bullet points, so hang on, there are quite a few. They've been implementing strategic recommendations, improving and streamlining the permitting process with a goal to reduce the time frame between submittal and completed permit application to permit issuance to 15 working days for new homes in rural lands and for commercial development in excess of 4,000 square feet. By reorganizing the permit center workflow counter, they have reduced customer waiting times from a previous average of 33 minutes to 10 minutes. And they also installed a customer service satisfaction survey kiosk, and consistently it indicates a 93% approval rating and the new counter and workflow arrangement. They trained the building plan examiners to focus on verifying compliance with minimum building code standards to reduce review times for plans and designs that are prepared and stamped by licensed professional engineers. And this has been something that the stakeholders had asked for. Many of these things are. They're consolidating and coordinating the residential stormwater review and inspection process in the Wetland and Habitat Program for efficiency and consistency. They've restored animal protection and control services to full staffing and service levels. They've successfully implemented phases 2 and 3 of the Clark County Land Management System for online permitting services, which includes online access for 40 of the 45 total permits and inspection types. They've trained staff to utilize and support our new financial management system, which is called Workday and Teller, for timekeeping and for their leave, for payroll, for recruitment, and procuring processing. And finally, they developed and adopted a fund balance policy and business continuity plan to ensure that community development can continue operations and maintain service levels in the event of a sustained downturn. We need to give kudos to Mitch and his team for accomplishing so much in such a short time. Thank you, Mitch and team. With that, I would like to turn it over to Councillor Temple Lentz, who represents District 1, for her comments.
So, as the local arm of state government, counties have a wide and varied scope of responsibility. Social and community services are core areas of importance to me personally, so those are where I'm going to direct my focus tonight. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know that Clark County started the new year with an outbreak of measles. And if you have been living under a rock, then at least you're probably safe from the fact that Clark County started the new year with an outbreak of measles. As of today's count, we have 70 confirmed cases and 3 suspect cases. To date, this outbreak has cost Clark County more than $600,000 and the state nearly $750,000. Additionally, other critical work has been put on the back burner because it's all hands on deck to manage this outbreak while still caring for our county's public health. Today, our U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Jerome Adams, visited us to meet with the team that is working on this emergency. It was wonderful to see him give well-deserved praise to the team, and also to hear him talk about vaccines being an important example of participation in the social contract that is a crucial part of living in our democratic society. And as a positive outcome of this outbreak, our immunization rate is going up. We are at 4 times the level of new immunizations this year than we were at last year. And that is largely thanks to the incredible work of our response team. Now, while measles gets the spotlight right now, our public health team has been doing great work in many other areas. The Nurse-Family Partnership, which matches public health nurses with low-income first-time mothers, is expanding to serve more families in our community and has been featured in a national magazine for their work. Public health also monitors food safety. Last year, the department added online permitting for food permits, as well as individual wells and drinking water systems to make it more accessible and easier. Environmental public health also puts on the Recycled Arts Festival the final weekend of June in Esther Short Park. Last year, it drew more than 35,000 people, and it just won the Vancouver Downtown Association's People's Choice Award for Favorite Event. If you haven't been, go this year. Now, keeping our natural environment healthy and safe is not just the province of public health. Currently, our Parks Department, under Public Works, is working closely with people from Friends of Vancouver Lake and the Vancouver Rowing Club, with the support of the City of Vancouver and the Port of Vancouver, to manage an increasingly dangerous spread of milfoil weed on our beloved Vancouver Lake. We're working on a long-term study and solution to stop the spread of milfoil, as well as an immediate solution, supporting the use of a Department of Ecology-approved treatment to limit the spread of milfoil and keep our lake safe for swimmers, paddleboarders, sailors, and rowers. One of the many services the county is mandated to provide is indigent defense or public defense. Even those who can't afford attorneys have the right to legal representation and a fair and speedy trial. Since 1980, the county has used a contractor model, paying external attorneys for their service. We don't have an internal public defense. But since 2009, the fees that we pay have remained flat. Though Clark County is the 5th largest county in the state, we have the 7th lowest spending on public defense per capita. And as a result, it is becoming more and more difficult to find contractors who will accept the low rates that we offer. Failure to properly fund public defense teeters on a dangerous edge of denial of justice. So this is a key issue that the council is working on addressing. And we're approaching it in 2 different ways. One, we're reviewing our funding models and best practices to address not just increasing attorneys' fees, but also whether the flat fee contractor model in and of itself is the most cost-effective for the services we need to provide. And 2, we're working with our partners in counties across the state to advocate for increased state funding. We are required by the state to provide these services, but we don't receive adequate state funding to meet the need. This problem took a long time to develop, and we won't be able to solve it immediately. But by pursuing multiple avenues and staying on course, changes will be forthcoming. Housing supply and affordability are also issues that affect every community in Washington. Population growth and low vacancy rates have produced a tight housing market. While many of us feel that pinch, it is felt most strongly by our lower and middle income households. These are also the households that have the fewest options. According to a recent Department of Commerce study, median rents statewide increased by 18% between 2006 and 2015. And as rents have increased, the number of housing units affordable to those earning 50% or less than the median actually decreased. We have a statewide shortfall of about 340,000 of these units of affordable housing. More and more of our residents, especially those with low and medium incomes, are cost burdened, and that means that they pay more than 30% of their income for housing. Housing instability is a key factor in homelessness. Evictions are on the rise, and 80 to 90% of evictions are due to falling behind on your rent. Now, in the last year, Clark County has made some good policy changes to address housing affordability for market rate housing. This has included cottage housing, manufactured homes, and ADUs. We are also the leading local funder for housing stability programs. But as we've seen, the need continues to grow. We have a great and important opportunity here to work with other jurisdictions and with private sector partners to address this growing need in our community. Our Department of Community Services does incredible work, and they don't seek praise for it. They put their heads down and get to work. I look forward to working with them to help some of the people in our community who have the greatest need, and with our other community partners to build on the successes that we have and find other innovative ways to help our communities most vulnerable. Clark County has many challenges ahead, but we also have many opportunities, and I look forward to working with all of my colleagues to serve you. And with that, I'd like to introduce Julie Olsen, Counselor for District 2.
Thank you, Councilor Lentz. I appreciate the introduction. So just recently, literally yesterday, Councilor Blom and Councilor Lentz and I returned from the National Association of Counties Annual Legislative Conference. And the theme of their conference this year was Counties Matter. And I, for one, believe that. I believe that Clark County matters and that our community matters. So it's always a privilege and an honor to be here to address you the state of the county. Counties are one of America's oldest forms of government, dating back to the 1600s, when the first county governments were established in Virginia. There are 3,069 county governments chartered under state constitutions or laws, and none of us are the same nationally. But we are all on the front lines of delivering vital services to our residents. And we talk often about the services that we provide, and that the fact that most of them are invisible to most of our community. Well, frankly, most of what we do as a council is invisible to most of our community. At least it is now. Maybe it wasn't 3 years or so ago, but it's not typically what we talk about at the water cooler. But I do want to take just a minute and reflect on some of the things, some of the county activities and council policy changes that we've made over the last year, and you may have heard a couple of them already. But we did have an election in November, and we welcomed 2 new councilors, Councilor Medvigy and Councilor Lentz. We also welcomed our new county manager, Shawn, Henessee, to the team. And Councilor Quiring already mentioned the fact that we do have 2 new leaders, one in community development and one in public works. And great work is being done in both of those departments. We did update our policies around manufactured homes, ADUs, cottage housing, and tiny houses to help provide more flexibility to our code and more housing options for our residents. We adopted our first annual budget, as Councilor Quiring mentioned, moving from our previous biannual budget. We began our policy discussion around the ability to use impact fees for trails, and just last month, we adopted that new policy, which allows us to provide use park impact fees to build trails in Clark County. We will also look to update our Parks, Recreation, Open Space Plan as we move into 2019. We created the Correctional Facility Advisory Committee to address our challenges and obligations with our current jail. Many of you here are on that committee. We continue to work and are beginning to seriously address and progress on lifting urban holding and opening up the 179th Street interchange area to economic development and housing. And I'll talk a little bit about more of that in a minute. In April, we welcomed ALNA, our friends in La Center and Ridgefield, and we continue to strengthen our relationship with the Cowlitz tribe. We updated our mental health sales tax and real estate excise tax policies to be more purposeful and more deliberate on how we disperse those funds throughout our community. And I know I won't forget the lengthy, robust, and spirited discussions we had about the use and sale of fireworks in Clark County and our moratorium on cannabis. So those are just a snapshot of some of the activities and some of the policy accomplishments of 2018. As we look to 2019, I'll just address a couple others myself. I mentioned the work that we've been doing to address the urban holding on 179th Street and that interchange project. This is the last project inside the urban growth boundary that's going to deliver us significant economic and infrastructure development. In order to remove urban holding and provide infrastructure, we have to show that it's been reasonably funded. We created the stakeholder group that I mentioned. They're going to provide a recommendation to the council within the next couple of weeks. Whatever the specific recommendation, it will include a variety of funding sources, including a significant contribution by the private sector. Economic development opportunity here is significant. Under some of the current zoning, which include commercial, mixed use, light industrial, and residential, there are over 4,000 acres of developable land. 2,000 of those acres are vacant land. Tax and retail sales estimates are between $188 million to $239 million in construction. This is local and state in sales tax revenues. $23 million to $34 million a year in ongoing local and sales tax revenues. So this is a significant opportunity to provide jobs, housing, and infrastructure development in Clark County. It's time that we get moving on this. We take the shackles off of this project and we get moving. And I think we'll see the council's committed to doing that. Another accomplishment I mentioned earlier was a policy discussion and policy change that allows us to use park impact fees for trails. Our Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan calls for 333 miles of planned trails. We currently have 46.2 miles built. Prior to this change, we couldn't use PIFs for trails. In the survey, as we developed our Park, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, we asked our community what was important. 87.5% that responded said that hiking and or walking is the most important and activity that they participate in on a regular basis. So the ability to use park impact fees for trails is going to provide more flexibility and more funding so we can actually get some of these trails built. Last year I talked about the Lewis and Clark Trail from north of Ridgefield all the way down to the west side and across to Washougal. Part of these funds can be used for ancillary trails to get to the Lewis and Clark Trail, or when we're in the urban growth boundary, actually part of that trail. So this is a significant opportunity for us to make some progress on trails to meet our commitments to our community. And then there's the budget. We did go to an annual budget. And I talk about this a lot because there's still a lot of misconception about Clark County General Fund budget. And specifically, I'll talk about the general fund. I had someone ask me last summer, not ask me, tell me that if we really, really worked at it, we could probably cut our general fund budget by 20%, just by getting rid of waste and abuse. That's just simply not a reality. Just a few data points on the Clark County budget that I think are important as we continue to have this conversation. With the passage of I-747, which many of you know was many, many years ago, we're limited to a 1% property tax levy increase each year. In Clark County, that's about $630,000 in 2018. That's about $3.51 per year for a house valued at about $300,000. I frequently get asked, why would we consider raising our general fund levy by 1% when the economy is doing so well and sales taxes and property taxes are increasing? And it's frankly a reasonable question. Sales taxes account for 24.8% of the revenue. Property taxes account for 38% of our general fund revenue. We have hundreds of other revenue sources that rise and fall that are unpredictable in each budget year. Those can be fines, fees, intergovernmental charges, and others. Those other revenues have declined by an average of 1.8% per year, and in 2018 they declined by 6.7%. The average expenditures have increased by 2.3%, but our revenues on average have increased only by 1.8%. So it's an equation that's difficult for folks to understand because our economy is booming. Why do you need to raise our taxes? County budgets are not like a budget in Olympia. We don't have a lot of revenue sources. We don't have the resources that cities have. So I think it's important to understand that as we build these budgets, we are careful and we consider what we do, how we collect the money, how we spend the money. And we can't forget that over $20 million a year go to Oregon. $20 million in sales tax revenue per year goes to Oregon. But how's the money spent? Once we collect it, how's it spent? 66% goes to law and justice. We talked a little bit about indigent defense. We don't have any control over what that budget number might be. It's well over $5 million a year right now. And the state provides us about $300,000. It goes to citizen services like animal control, fire marshal, code enforcement, and others. 71% of all general fund revenue pays salaries and benefits. And Clark County spends less per capita on general fund services than any other county our size. We talk about indigent defense, and the lawyer's reason that their pay hasn't increased is we simply don't have the funds, or it's difficult to manage those funds in order to get those pay increases. We have fewer employees now than we had in 2009, and we have fewer per capita than any other county our size. So I spend the time going through these details about our budget because I want you to know the attention that we pay and that our staff pays every single year that we go through this process. We make sure we're spending your tax dollars wisely and respectfully, and we make sure that every single year we look for ways to reduce and to be more efficient with your tax dollars. We don't have a choice. So I'm looking forward to the opportunities ahead. Thank you for the opportunity to serve. Thank you for your continued support. 2019 will bring challenges and opportunities, but I'm confident that this council will be able to maneuver through it and take on with optimism what lies ahead for us. So with that, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. And I will introduce from Council District 3, my friend, Councilor John Blom.
I got involved in county government, first as a planning commissioner and now as a county councilor, to help address what I saw as the big issues facing Clark County: land use and transportation needs, public safety, the lack of affordable housing, and the need for focused and sustainable economic development. Those things are important, but as I've found over the last 2 years, working on them sometimes can feel a little bit like Sisyphus, slowly pushing a gigantic boulder up what feels like a never-ending hill. During those moments of frustration, what I found keeps me motivated is reflecting on the opportunity that local government has to positively impact the lives of our citizens, not just in the future, but today. Much of that impact comes from the less visible services, as Councilor Olsen mentioned, that Clark County provides, not just to the citizens in the unincorporated area, but also to the citizens of all of the cities. And as much of my district resides in East Vancouver, that's important to me. One of the committees I serve on behalf of the council is the Area Agency on Aging and Disability. The agency serves 5 Southwest Washington counties and provides a wide range of services to the senior community and those with disabilities. Through contracts with local service providers, the agency coordinates dozens of programs, many of which are funded through Medicaid and Medicare. One specific program I'd like to highlight is the Health Home Program. This program connects client advocates with individuals who are in need of a broad range of services, but may not know what options are there for them. The advocates provide care coordination that not only results in better care for the clients, but significant cost savings. As the saying goes, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. By better coordinating the preventative care, it reduces the demand for more expensive care options like emergency room visits, ambulance services, and hospitalization. And the amount that this program has saved Medicaid and Medicare just in Clark County is in the millions. I'm also a member of the CTRAN board as a representative of the county. At the start of 2017, CTRAN began operations on the Vine, a bus rapid transit line providing service on 4th Plain from downtown to Vancouver Mall. The first year of operation saw a 45% increase in ridership on the Vine compared to the same bus line the previous year, and another 19% increase in 2018. It's also worth noting that that line was one of the busiest lines within the service area even prior to bus rapid transit opening. In addition to the increased ridership, we've seen economic development and growth all along the 4th Plain line. And while I'd like to be able to take credit for the Vine, as I said, I was in office just over a week at that point and had not yet found the vending machine, so that credit firmly belongs to the previous boards who moved that project along. But as a current CTRAN board member, I can say with excitement that following up on the success of the 4th Plain line, we are now moving forward with a second bus rapid transit line in Clark County along Mill Plain from downtown Vancouver out to 192nd, providing better and more predictable service through the core of the residential and commercial hubs of Vancouver, including District 3. CTRAN has completed the first phase of the Federal Transit Authority's Small Start Grant Program, creating a locally preferred alternative, and are moving on to more detailed project design. Although we have work ahead if things go well, the organization is hoping to start construction in less than 2 years. As a council, we also lobby on behalf of Clark County and Olympia, both directly with our state legislators and through the Washington of Association Counties Legislative Steering Committee. One issue we are working on this year is funding for the I-5 interchange at 179th Street. The most recent state transportation package provided funding for the project, but those funds are not available to be spent for another several years. We are working with the transportation committees in both chambers to request some of these dollars be released earlier so we can move forward with planning and design work. We are also working to procure funds in the capital budget for a project being led by the Vancouver Housing Authority, the Tenny Creek Assisted Living Project. As Councilor Lentz mentioned, we have a housing crisis in Clark County that impacts all of our residents, but it hits even harder those in our community with mental health and physical health challenges. This project will create 40 housing units for low-income individuals and will also provide the additional services that these individuals need. We have support on this issue from many of our representatives, but I would like to give a special thank you to Representatives Paul Harris and Monica Stonier and State Senator Annette Cleveland for formally submitting the requests to their chamber's Capital Budget Committee. Finally, as part of Washington Association of Counties, we are asking the legislature to establish policy regarding foundational public health services and provide operating budget support for these services. Foundational public health services are the programs that help keep our communities safe and healthy. Things like restaurant inspection, swim beach safety, maintaining vital records like birth and death certificates, and dealing with infectious diseases like measles. The ongoing measles outbreak has brought to the forefront two things: the need for ongoing education to the public about the safety and efficacy of vaccines, and also the incredible staff that we have in our public health department. Since the outbreak, they have worked tirelessly, contacting over 4,000 individuals who may have had exposure to measles and helping answer their questions and let them know what steps they should take. They've also helped 39 children or pregnant women who were exposed to measles and not up to date on their vaccinations receive immunoglobulin, a treatment that when received less than 6 days can help prevent measles from developing. And credit also needs to be shared with Peace Health for working diligently to increase their stocks of immunoglobulin so that no child or pregnant woman would be turned away for lack of supply. Prior to this outbreak, Peace Health only kept 7 or 8 doses of this available. They've now increased that to 20 and are constantly refilling it to make sure that if there's a need for it, they're able to provide it. In closing, while I'm thankful for the opportunity to have a voice in the future of our community, I am more thankful for the opportunity that we as a council have to help our citizens today. Whether it's our aging population, a Clark County student who wants a better way to get to classes, a homeless person for whom the barriers to housing are just too great, or keeping our community healthy through response to a crisis. Thank you to all of you for caring enough about our community to be here tonight. And I'd like to introduce our newest counselor, Councilor Gary Medvigy.
So I am the newest counselor. I've only been here about a month, so I'm not going to stand here and tell you about all the great achievements I've done over the last year, because I haven't. But I want to touch on a few points that I think are important, that are coming up. First and foremost, thank you for coming. I didn't know what was going to happen with the snowstorm. I started hinting to the other counselors, hey, maybe we should put this off to another day. But thanks for coming and braving it. This is God's country. This is so beautiful. We have such precious natural resources here that we all should be proud of, but it's the people. The people, God-fearing country. I'm just so impressed with the friendship and friendliness of all the people that are here. And one of the things I was surprised, so I can say it, this is also a county that is now home, Prairie and Washougal, to 2 state girl high school basketball teams. You have to be proud of that. And the boys went on, but the girls took the championships. So it's their county pride. And hopefully, maybe we'll get a resolution. I know Washougal's working on that right now. Coming into this job, I had some trepidation based on all the news articles I read and internet articles about the council and the trials and tribulation, the politics, but I want to assure you, this council is hitting on all cylinders. The people that are here are working together, working the details, as you've heard, bringing their diverse backgrounds and experiences. We are getting work done, and I'm very proud to be working with this team. I think you should too, as well as the new management team that's on board in some of our most crucial departments, and the manager himself. We are doing hard work. A lot of people look at the cameras and they may watch from afar and they say, boy, we watched you at that hearing and no one seemed to really ask any questions or do anything, and you made a decision. I assure you there are work sessions ahead of time, public hearings in between, a lot of feedback, a lot of research that we do individually, meetings with different staff sections. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. So rest assured, we are doing the county's business, and we're doing it in detail. Some of these issues are very complex. I'm just going to mention Camp Bonneville because I know a lot of the neighborhood associations are very concerned about it. I had a tour up there a couple weeks ago. It's going to be a precious area, resource for all of us. Probably about another 18 months of cleanup to go, and then we'll be opening it up to different activities that will fit, and probably 10, 20, 30 miles of trails up there that will have great views ultimately. But that's at its nascent stages, but we're already working the detail of what activities will be there. Took all my wind on all the measles comments I was going to say. Obviously, that was the first big thing I walked into. I just want to hit a couple other facts. First of all, you should be really proud of the health department. It's still ongoing. We're still in it. We're not out of the woods yet. But their work, and I'm just going to say IG treatments as well as vaccinations, there was about 100 of them in total that they gave to suspected contacts. Without the work of the health department, we would have had a lot more costs, a lot more illness, perhaps more serious illness, because this is and can be a very deadly disease. I mentioned that we've had 4 times the inoculation rate since the end of January. That equates to about 7,500 inoculations that our local facilities and the health department facilitated in giving to our county. So I'm hoping, and I made an appeal to those who don't believe in them, that they appeal to their better angel and get the inoculations not only for the health of their child, but for themselves, to protect the people they don't know. The unborn children, the children under 1 that can't be inoculated, and those people, whether adults or children that have a compromised immunity system. That's what's important here. The other untold story at the health department is they had a command center, and one faction of it was manned almost entirely by volunteers. A huge volunteer workforce came out, and it rivaled any military command post that I've ever seen in its efficiency and how it attacked this crisis, and still is doing so today. I believe you did mention the nurse-family partnership, which is a great initiative that they've been doing and has grown on the number of children and women that they've contacted. It also made national magazine because it's such a good program. So they did a great job for us and kept what could have been a real calamity contained. Rail-dependent use, I have to mention that. I love the railroad. You know, our country was built on the railroad. You know, there are comparisons of other similarly situated countries like Brazil, same landmass, same kind of resources. But it was our nation's railroad that made the difference for our expansion and our development. And of course, we were rich in timber across the country. And that's part of our history here in Clark County. Not only our rail, but the mills that they serviced initially, put in place in 1888, finished the northern half in the 1940s. But I mention it because it's part of our rural heritage and history. And we really need to ensure, and it can be an engine of economic growth. I will tell you, if you haven't perused the web pages for the county, staff has done a tremendous amount of work already in putting rules together for permitting, zoning. I know there's a lot of contentious issues out there because of the parks and the rural nature, but there's a lot of work been done, and the county councilors will, in the future, give that great attention to have the best uses there, because it's a pristine and part of our heritage here. Now, I want to mention in somewhat of a different tone, the 179th Street development, where I'm confident, or optimistic, that we will see those funds advanced on the interchange on 5. We need this development. The private sector, it's a very attractive development for them economically, and some of them have been in this for like 10 years trying to get this done. So my kudos to them for hanging in there for this proposed development. It will benefit the county at large, increasing the tax base, increasing housing. It'll be a boon to our county as a whole. And the developers are pitching in direct contributions on improvements, probably surcharges, and then the county public funds will have bonds in place. But I've also seen proposals by the executive branch for taxes, additional taxes for the entire county, up into 4.23%, I think, down to 1% for the next 4 years. To me, that means we don't quite have a good balance. You know, urban holding's a good thing as a planning tool, but it does constrain properties. It puts property in limbo. It takes property rights away from people with a good purpose to plan growth so we don't have sprawl. But if we don't have enough development at the time we release the holding where we have to tax everyone, I'm fearful for all those remotely located on fixed incomes who are just getting by. They don't need another tax burden, and it means to me that maybe we don't have the right balance in the amount of development. So I am proposing that we do phase some of the additional development, primarily on 50th and 179th, and perhaps even 10th, which are kind of outside of the Discovery Corridor anyway. Nevertheless, we've been working at this, the developers anyway, for the last 10 years. It needs to happen. We need to get this done, and I'm confident it will happen. We just need to get the mix correct on how we fund it. So I am going to conclude once again by thanking you for coming. We are in God's country here, and now to state championship girls basketball teams. It's you that makes all of this possible, and I really appreciate all the attendance we get at our hearings, and at least for the future, we're going to have them in the evening to get more attendance to make it easier for you to attend. But the public participation across the board, whether it's by telephone, email, coming to the hearings, I mean, I constantly have a desk of stuff to read, thanks to people out in the community that are educating me as to the issues. So keep it up, and I assure you, on behalf of everyone here, they are doing their jobs in great detail. There's a lot of work behind the scenes, and it's all for your best interests. Thank you.
There's really three things I want to cover in brief. The first one is the effort to replace the jail. I think there is a universal, from what I've seen, belief and expectation that our jail needs to be replaced. Our jail was constructed in a old school style in the 80s. It has grown as we've grown in that population. Its capacity has grown. Many people aren't even aware. We don't even, because we're utilizing the storage in the basement and the freezers, we don't even prepare the food at our jail anymore. We had to use that space for other purposes. We actually prepare our food elsewhere and then ship it in. So that has been the focus of, you'll hear it referred to as the CFAC committee, also just referred to as the jail committee. Right now we're looking to get the recommendation from the CFAC committee in the June or July timeframe. And that's going to be a critical component as we start looking at this. And it's a complex issue in terms of the size and location of the jail. But one of the points that I've been making to many people is in many ways that's almost a simple question when you start looking at all the things that this jail will impact. This jail impacts where our prosecutor may potentially be located. We also have issues with our family law annex. We have 3 courtrooms at the family law annex, that's a lease facility, so we can't always rely upon having that. We, as we continue to grow, are going to need more courtrooms. So not only do we have to look at the jail, but we have to look at the impact countywide. So one of the things that I've been doing is to start reaching out. Some of the other counselors mentioned we just went live on Workday, literally with the second phase of it on Monday. I started, wonderful timing on my part, I think the day before, the day after the first phase of Workday went in place, and that was in regards to timekeeping. We just went live last Monday with the financial aspect of Workday. This is a much more complex process in terms of procurement and purchases and things of that nature. There has been an enormous amount of work put into getting that Workday financial aspect put in place. I was here on Sunday, we had a bit of a fire alarm, and all the Workday people were outside waiting, and it was very cold, I've got to tell you. But their perseverance and their hard work has paid off, and we're going forward with that. Now, back to the jail. It's even after we get the recommendation from the CFAC committee, we're also going to have to look at those ongoing space needs that I alluded to. So I'm going to ask the SLT team here at the county to be looking at some of those space needs. At the same time, I'm going to be asking here, once we get Workday stabilized, to take a look at some of our financing options for the jail. Not only are the capital costs for a new jail large, if you will, the brick and mortar aspect of it, it's the personnel costs that are truly terrifying to me at times, because those costs only continue to increase. Your capital costs, your brick and mortars, you can figure it out and you can retire those costs over time. But as you increase staffing, and with the staffing model that we're looking at, which is called direct supervision, there's going to be a lot of additional costs there. We need to get a handle on that. So I'll be asking them to look at that as the CFAC committee goes forward and formulating their recommendation. After that recommendation comes in, I'll be working closely with the council and all the other different components to try to come up with a way to synthesize the recommendations of CFAC with all of these other needs, and at the same time looking at the financing aspect of that. It is a critical component. I don't think there's any doubt that our jail needs to be replaced. So that's the first issue. The next issue I'd like to talk about a little is just I'll call it operations generally, and kind of I included under that the budget, which Councilor Quiring alluded to. We did transition to an annual budget. Again, that wonderful timing of mine, I managed to start not only the day before or after the first phase of Workday went live, but I got to start right in with the supplemental budget for the last biennium, 2017 to 2018, and then basically right after that was done, start preparing the 2019 budget. This is from a person who did not have much experience with the Clark County budget, hence the earlier saying about drinking from a fire hose. I have learned a lot. I still have a lot more to learn. That's just an inherent nature of the beast, if you will, in handling a budget. I do want to thank, though, all the employees, particularly in the budget office. That it is critical that the resources that we devote to that budget, that we really take a critical look at it, the finance team, the auditor's office, in putting that budget together. It is absolutely critical. Now, one of the struggles that we've had, and you've all probably heard about it, is some of the general fund shortfalls. We have been very efficient in terms of when you look at the overall number of employees. At the same time that the county population has grown, our employee count has been pretty static. The demand on services has continued. That leads to a lot of pressure on the general fund. But I also understand that just revenue is not always the only answer. So one of the things we've been doing is I call them deep dives. I think some county employees who have to go through this process may have other names for them, but what this involves is basically looking at their individual department budget and trying to find efficiencies within that. It's been successful so far. It's not always the most enjoyable process, but it's a critical thing, because I need to look as we prepare this budget, at not just the general fund, but all the funds, to make sure that we are wisely using the taxpayer monies. The general fund gets a lot of the attention, and it is our largest fund, and it's the fund that we can use for the most expenses. But Clark County is large enough that we have a number of other very large funds, the road fund, the planning and code. There's a number of very large funds. And no matter where that revenue comes from, we need to be good stewards of it for the taxpayers and the residents of Clark County. And that's one of the reasons why we've been going through that also. I've been here since July 30th, so it's been a little over 6 months. I am very grateful for the fact that there is a new counselor who is newer even than I am. So I understand the experience with Councilor Medvigy, and Councilor Lentz is, at least she had some experience in the past in the Clark County area. Both Councilor Medvigy and I came from outside the area. But I think it's really important that all of these issues in terms of the budget, all of the counselors, take their individual votes when it comes time. I submit a budget and they approve it, that they get all the information they can, because they're experiencing that same experience of drinking from a fire hose that I was before. The last area I really wanted to talk about was the Growth Management Act. The Growth Management Act is the law of the state of Washington, and it's been in effect for quite some time. It is very difficult sometimes, from my perspective, when the GMA treats Clark County the same as a very large rural county, and it makes it very difficult as far as following all the mandates of the GMA. Currently, Clark County is not in compliance, according to the Growth Management Board, with the GMA. However, we believe that the reasons that have been enunciated are incorrect, and we have filed an appeal, which is currently pending. What's the net effect of this? The net effect of this means that Clark County is not eligible for what's called the Public Works Trust Fund, and this leads to increased costs. What the Public Works Trust Fund would allow the county to have a lot lower interest rate for a lot of these infrastructure projects that were alluded to on 179th Street and elsewhere. It also means the county isn't eligible for a lot of grants. We would, and hopefully we'll be able to negotiate a settlement or something, but if not, the county has appealed that decision and will be going forward. Nevertheless, we believe that Clark County has complied. As an attorney, I always believe that we will follow the law. That's always the number one thing that we're going to do. There is a difference of interpretation that Clark County and the Growth Management Board has, and that's being about the most diplomatic way I can put it. But hopefully we'll be able to address that. Again, I would like to thank everyone for this opportunity, the residents of Clark County, the council, and also the employees. Much like many of the other counties I've been at and other local governments, they truly are the assets, and that's a platitude, but it's one that I actually believe. They're our biggest cost, the benefits and employee salaries, but they're also our biggest asset. And they are the ones that provide those critical assets, and they are the ones that allow us to continue to provide those services. So thank you, and remember, there are cookies.